Oh my god. Wait, live streaming isn't available now? What's going on? Okay, there we go. Okay, we are actually streaming. I can't tell if this is working. There we go. Okay, cool. Little ping everybody. On the Discord. All right. Wow. This is actually crazy. We're going to do some espresso. Don't know why this webcam thing is doing this. 1 second. There we go. Okay. So I am waking up, and this is how it is. You know, we never. It's like I was going to make coffee anyway, so we may as well record that or do a little stream on it. And what I wanted to do is actually make espresso. This is crazy, unheard of things here. So basically, I'm going to start to do that. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday in the other stream, which was brewing some of these more like premium coffees. And we ended up pulling this Altieri Estate Gesha as espresso, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, because this is like a $65 bag of coffee. We pulled 2 espresso shots. You know, each of those espresso shots at 18 grams. You know, there's like 100 something grams in this in this bag. It's like, you know, we were pulling our $20 espresso shots. So pretty expensive stream yesterday, but those espressos were tasting amazing. And you know, we have some other coffees. You may as well pull espresso and see, you know, who comes through to the stream. We may pull the Sophias. I'm thinking about pulling the Sophias, but I kind of wanted to brew these. I do need to pull a coffee to start. And I think I might have enough of this Kenyan Gesha. We'll have to weigh things out. But yeah, that is the plan for today. And we're going to use a Flare 58 because I'm going to let one of my friends borrow this flare for a bit of time. So I'm not going to have it. But, you know, I don't really make as much espresso nowadays. I just think the flare makes probably some of the strongest espresso you'll have. Especially, you know, if you don't want to have like a very repeatable machine. Like the Mavam. Maybe we'll do the Mavam another day. But today, let's do the flare. You can hear I have not woken up. I haven't really cleaned up anything from yesterday. So yeah, I'm going to let's find a coffee first to pull before we get into the more expensive coffees as a little primer. I think that would be a good start. Maybe we can pull some coffees that Howie gave me or other people have passed off to me. Have some coffees from a bunch of people, as usual. But pretty much what we are going to experience today is pulling a lot of espressos that don't taste as espresso-like as people may want them to taste. So I have a few options. Let's go through our regular options, and then we can pull something a little nicer. Because the kind of thought with the reason why I've started to avoid espresso for a lot of reasons is because it's always, it's hard to taste espresso. Like, it's hard to taste the nuances of coffees in espresso, because what you're really tasting, or you have to learn how to taste coffees like these pulled as espresso, is that there's a lot of, with these like really premium coffees, with these like high scoring coffees and whatever, all the expensive stuff, the reason why they cost a lot of money is because they're usually these like nuanced characteristics, like extensions of flavor notes and things that are tied to that like tie one flavor note to another, and there are these like really interesting subtleties, or maybe they're very, very loud coffees. And the problem with espresso is that I'm dropping things. You end up with a medium of coffee that obscures some of those nuances. Because, simply put, because you have two things going on. One is pressure and crema, and the second is high TDS. Not to say that high TDS is bad, but if you you're tasting a concentrate, and when you have such compacted flavors together, it makes tasting things kind of hard. So for these coffees that have these, super special characteristics and all of that, it can get a little difficult to experience those very small, nuanced attributes. And I have seen people run through this experience of like spending a lot of money on, say, a very fancy geisha or whatever, and then they're like, oh, I don't understand why this is so expensive. It tastes like, whatever. Tastes like coffee, right? And then maybe it's because all they're doing is they're tasting crema or whatever. So anyway, long little starting thing there. As you see, we're not awake right now. What we do need to do is we do need to heat up a kettle, because we're using Flare 58, and we'll just use the X Bloom to heat up some water, because we can do these things. And I do need to record some X Bloom YouTube videos later. You guys should go and subscribe to the X Bloom channel. It's we're putting random videos on the YouTube channel now, aka just me tasting coffees. Look at this. Isn't this super cool? It's a spout to heat up your kettle now. I'll move this out of the way, since we are probably not brewing pour over today. But yeah, so use a little hot water spout function to heat up the kettle. Honestly, I have not... Dude, waiting for kettles to heat up is the most frustrating thing these days. Especially, now we're on the instant heater meta, right? Decent, everybody's on that meta now. This kettle heating up is a waste of time, right? Flare, I have this set up. This guy is set to 3 on the dots. There is a new flare, right? And I have not looked at chat at all. No milk drinks, because I mean we could do milk drinks, but I have to turn that guy on, and I don't have a way to heat this up here. But yeah, we're just boiling water with the X Bloom. Let me see how much Kenyan geisha I have left. It would be, oh man, I have been pulling some of these really expensive coffees, like the bag ends of them. We're really filling up this kettle. But yeah, you can now, this is like the setup, right? You can use this for your water for everything. So, let me see how much coffee is in this. Yesterday I was pulling the 01. I was pulling it at 1.3, and 1.3 was flowing a little fast on here, although I was at 1 RPM and I was slow feeding. This is the rest of the Kenyan Gesha. We might as well just pull this, because this is getting on the older side, if I have enough, which I actually think I do. My dosages these days have been around 17 grams. 17 seems to be... I don't know why Flair has any of the... So I have exactly, maybe I have 17.1 grams of the Kenyan Gesha. Wow, Lance is gonna be like so mad that I'm doing this. We're gonna pull Kenyan Gesha as our starting espresso. So maybe all of the coffees you pull today are expensive. And the first shot might be absolutely terrible. So, and then for anyone wondering, I'm using, so 17 grams in here. I have Flair 58 on 3 dots. And I have a high flow basket, Wafo Spirit. So a lot of things have to happen here. A lot of things, like basically what's going to happen is more of these premium coffees, like all these coffees are all really light, right? They're gonna look ugly. You shouldn't care about, you know, what the visuals look like in terms of espresso, right? This is like the enlightened view that I want everybody to eventually have in coffee, is that, you know, what it looks like, it doesn't matter, generally speaking. I do kind of want to pull Bakele, but you guys said it was too fresh. I think for espresso it might be okay. And then I also have a coffee from Standout. So we also have another Ethiopian, but this is Ukro. So a million different Ethiopians right now. We have the Sophias, we have Gesha Village, we have the 3 Ethiopians here. We have other coffees that Howie, who's in the chat, sent over. Maybe we should just pull this. Pull Wash Finca Sophia. Like this is true, like this here, if you do guys an espresso, this is $20 right here, like for sure. Like if you were to go to a cafe and buy it, right, it would be like 20 bucks. And they would fuck it up because that is cafe espresso. So anyway, we have lots of choices here. Let's do the Kenyan Gesha. This coffee was, you know, 80 bucks for 125 grams. So very expensive. And, you know, espresso to me, a really well pulled shot of espresso is quite memorable. And that's the one thing, is like, you know, I remember coffees a lot for like some of these like nuances, or it's like loud, or, you know, whatever. But to really seal the deal, I think if you pull like a coffee as an espresso and you do it really well, it is actually very memorable. And that's what I did with the Bean and Bean 91.5 Alita. Was we pulled it on the Mavama, that stream. It was like, I was like, wow, this was a memorable coffee. Because you just can amplify a lot of those things with an espresso. So anyway, we're gonna do that with this Kenyan Gesha, and you know, hopefully this is a very memorable experience. Either because A, we pull it really, really well, or B, everything goes wrong and we remember it for that. I'm going to actually tighten up the grind on a lot of these. There is a sweet spot on the Flair where you're able to maintain steady flow rate when you're doing pre-infusion, and it's like not too coarse, and you can do most of the modulation through pressure. But as I've mentioned towards the end, if you guys like want to open up another tab and you want to watch like the other stuff we were talking about yesterday, is I really like shots that as the puck saturates and you see pressures go down, degrade, your puck degrades, your pressure drops, your flow goes up. I really like it when these two lines kind of intersect. Anyway, kettle temperature, 90 Celsius, Flair on 3 dots, 17 grams, which just happened to be the rest of my Kenyan Gesha. And I'm going to tighten up the grind from the 01. So I'm looking for my 0 point. I actually don't know where 0 is. 0 should be locked here. Yeah, okay. So I was at 1.3. I'm actually going to up the RPM because I think I need a little more fines. I could also just use a flat max, but you know, we have this here. So I'm gonna feed this actually at 4 at 1.1. So let's see how this is, because this coffee is on the older side. It's a lighter coffee. You know, we want to. I'd rather have a little more muddiness, or you know, we can live compensate and see what's happening when we pull this, than you know, a shot that just is way too fast. And as you guys know, I have the older Flair 58. So this guy is just the one. I've been used to this workflow where you take the plunger out. I know on the new one you can, or on the newer ones you can, you know, go in and kind of, you know, fill it without removing the plunger. So this is the Kenny Gesha. This is on the older side. You know, for those guys who picked up, we've made, you know, one stream, a video on this. There's also a cupping video that I did with some of these coffees with the Kenyan Gesha in there that I think will be very, very interesting. Also, there's a new normal dose tamper. So the guy from Normal Dose sent the new one over. So we were playing with that yesterday on the stream. So I will catch up on chat once I pull this. I am recently using, yeah, dude, X-Bloom as a espresso grinder is actually really amazing. I actually think the espresso coming off of our machine with this grinder is a lot better than SSPMPs. So maybe we can pull coffees with this, but yeah, you know, this is going to give you your more heptagonal style espresso, depending on obviously what RPM you pull, but it's going to be large sweet spot, nice and sweet, slightly on the bigger body. But the thing that I haven't observed with our espresso coming off of this grinder is it doesn't have some of that harshness you might experience out of you know, if you guys ever pull like Option O Lago Mini or like heptagonal style espresso, sometimes there's a little bit of sharpness or harshness in those shots. That's kind of my big complaint with like Niche Zero, for example. But this doesn't have that at the lower RPMs, which is interesting. So I think the reason why we get some of that harshness, and you get like, you know, nice body and stuff with like Lago Mini, Casa to an extent. You don't really get that with this, which is awesome. You see, you know, nice and flat puck. Oh, you're right. You guys know what I didn't do yesterday, and I made really good espressos. So I didn't use a puck screen. I forgot. I always forget. Do you even need a puck screen with this machine? I feel like I pulled really good shots yesterday without the puck screen, and they were tasting good. Am I crazy? Let me look for a puck screen. I forgot that was a thing with the Flair. We have multiple options for puck screens. We have the Flair puck screen. We have S-Works puck screen somewhere here. We have Weber. We have like a million choices here. Let's use a Flair puck screen. I think for a lot of these coffees, oh yeah. So let me talk a bit about like the style of shot we're gonna pull, because that would be, like, you know, like I said, I just woke up. Okay, you know, you guys know how it is. These streams are, you know, we just woke up. We gotta get it ready. The first shot we're gonna pull is a Kenyan Gesha. We'll wake up and we'll start talking about stuff. Does this fit? Okay, this actually fits. So the reason why we're using this over the Mavam is because I'm too lazy to move the camera. Like, that's actually the reason. This camera is set up so I can record some other videos. But also, this is easier to show. It's easier to talk about like the pressures and stuff, because on the Mavam, we don't have the pressure gauge that we can see as much. Although I could have just put the decent out here, I didn't feel like setting up the decent. And I want to use this machine because I'm gonna give this to one of my friends for a bit. So I'm gonna kind of miss my Flair. Although whatever, I don't care too much. I don't make that enough espresso to care that much. Okay, so this guy kettle set to 90 Celsius. I'm gonna pour this in. I do feel like with the very first shot, your temperatures might be on the slightly lower side, but we pull a lot of these shots quite fast, so it doesn't really matter. And because the chamber is heated, I haven't really experienced any downsides there. Okay, so I have to do this reverse, but I'm gonna try pulling the classic turbo bloom profile, and I'm just gonna like let it go. So the first thing, I don't know if you guys can see pressure here, but we're gonna introduce water. We get a little bit of like maybe 2 bars, and then I just am pushing down until 6 bars. And then I'm slightly letting off of it, and I'm letting the pressure drop. So what that shot was, I didn't even time that, but that shot was like maybe 15 seconds. Felt like 15 seconds. And our dose, by the way, so this was 17 to 71.4. So I was doing like kind of 2 things there. One was that initial introduction of flow. So we see the pressure gauge go up to like 2-ish bars. So this is how I pull shots on the bomb, okay? And even on the decent is 1 second saturation, and then really strong ramp up. So this is that turbo boom profile that I've been using for years now on the decent, and we end up with this. This is the ratio that I'm tending to like with the 01, or with a lot of these burrs is in the larger areas. So we actually don't get that much crema, even though the pressure here, like I was pushing relatively hard, I would say, and you with the flare and with all these lever machines, you for sure can feel that there is the resistance gets lower as you are saturating the puck with water. And you know, really when you're ramping up flow. So that was the thing, as I was saying, is the pressure is dropping and our flow is going up, and you can kind of see the flow. You know, this was like going up when it becomes easier to push through. But we have a lot of modulation because we can literally feel it. So I was feeling like the resistance when I was getting to about 6 bars, I could have pushed it harder and actually probably increased the pressure because the puck still had some resistance to it. But what I was doing there is I felt when I was getting to that 6 bar area, I was letting a little bit off the physical pressure on here on the lever. So yeah, that's how it was. And then you see the pressure drop. So you know our pressure value is 2 bar pre-infusion for 1 second. You see you'll see the pressure drop instantly, and then it'll ramp back up as you push it up. And you know, we don't get that much crema. We do get a little bit of crema because you will find crema, I would say anything above 4-ish bars, although not so much with this type of coffee. So, and then again, I'm using the Avensi Wave glass because this is probably my favorite coffee glass, espresso glass. This is the pour over glass, by the way, or for the bigger stuff. And as you see there, I can kind of just like get rid of, I can swirl the crema away. Generally speaking, a lot of the crema is going to be, you know, bitter. So you kind of get it into the rest of the cup here, and you know, this is like higher TDS. I'm not going to measure this. I'm lazy. I'm not going to measure this. But you know, this is like your what is this? It's 71.2 divided by 17. This is, you know, your 1 to 4. This is 1.4. I almost got to 4.2, guys. Ratio. So this is, you know, in your higher ratios, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And to reiterate from yesterday's stream, this type of espresso is going to be very acidity forward. I think, you know, it's going to be clear, it's going to be acidity forward, it's going to be vibrant, but you're sacrificing a lot of, I would say, sweetness and finish. But you can maybe retain some of that because one, you use a really right coffee, or two, you lower some of the pressures, like the lower the flow at the end. So anyway, this is the first espresso we're gonna do. Probably gonna be on for about an hour or so. So let me like taste this, and you know, I need to wake up. I'm rambling on. Incredible coffee. Kenya Gesha is so special. Wow. Very tropical, very floral, but the most thing that I'm experiencing is this acidity that is there. The acidity is very layered and nuanced. So this was the thing I was talking about at the very beginning of the stream. When you have these 90 plus coffees, you have these premium coffees. There is a depth of acidity and an extension of flavor that is very difficult to capture in espresso. But if you're pulling at these larger ratios, we're reducing the TDS and we're getting a very, I would say, even extraction because of the flows we're pulling at and the basket we're using, and without getting too deep into that. But basically, if you look at the puck, it's going to be hard to do this on the flare, I think. We see very even extraction, and you should have a puck that doesn't have a lot of black spots in it or different colored spots. You should have like a very even looking puck. So that's like one indicator. The second thing really is still the main thing to focus on still with this is the flavor. Is that you're getting this acidity, vibrancy forward shot with this profile, with the Turbo Bloom, and it allows you to experience a lot of those nuances, but amplify them because it's in espresso. So think about all of these very subtle flavor notes. For example, like let's look at this coffee here. It says like red apple, black currant, floral, crisp acidity, right? You probably, there's like a lot of those flavor notes on the bag there. You probably will get like a more amplified note in the layering there. But with this type of espresso profile, generally, you're going to lose out on a lot of the balance. You're going to lose out on a lot of the florality. You're going to lose out on a lot of the balance, and you're going to lose out a lot on the inherent sweetness. Most people, I've mentioned this in many videos and many streams, is I still believe most people prefer balanced and sweet espresso, even with coffees of this caliber. And the biggest difference between balanced and sweet espresso, to kind of still, we're going to pull this and we'll get to there. The biggest difference between this balanced sweet espresso and very acidity forward espresso to still, I would say, properly present coffees with this level of nuance and level of complexity is pre-infusion time. We can do that with something like a flare. But these are coffees where it's like, it doesn't look like yes, you can tell it's high TDS, right? But it isn't like crema bomb and ugly things like that, right? Tiger Stripe's ugly. Get me the hell out of there, right? We don't want coffees. We don't want any shots that look like that at all for these types of coffees. That is literally how you throw money away. If you pull an espresso that looks like that with these coffees, it's hard to say where that goes. I would just scrape the crema off at that point. Anyway, as we taste this, let's let it cool. Taste it. Very upfront acidity, right? If you think about how I do the V60 recipe, think about that, but amplified. That's the type of effect I was going for with that recipe. That's the effect that's happening with Turbo Bloom, is main things that are lingering on your palate that are presented to you are the inherent one main acidity component of that coffee that you're pulling. Then as it lingers, then you're getting kind of that extension of flavor notes. And the finish is clean, it is sweet, but the main thing to focus on that is going to be present is acidity. So that is like the shot that I just pulled. I'm going to now catch up on chat, so let me do that. Mortar and pestle is great. Oh, and also to one note on this style of shot. This is kind of down. So the other thing I do want to mention with this type of shot and all the shots we're going to pull, keep in mind of temperature and ramp up flow rate. So as you're pulling down the lever, as you're introducing water into the puck, keep in mind of the flow rate. So the two things to keep in mind, and the reason why you want to keep in mind of temperature and flow rate is these are kind of interlinked to the grinder you're using. So for example, if you are using a low clarity burr set, like a niche 0, for example, and you try pulling this style of shot, you may end up with an incredibly harsh coffee, or you might end up with a lot of flavors that kind of fall apart, like tasting an espresso shot where the flow was clearly too fast and you aren't extracting enough. So the shot I pulled there was like, what, 15 seconds long. I'm using a 102 millimeter blind flat burr that is really strong in these very fast flow rates. You may want to slow things down by 5-ish seconds if you're using 5 to 10 seconds if you're using a lower clarity burr set. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is like adjust this to taste. The other thing to keep in mind that I mentioned is temperature. As you're pulling shots that have faster and faster flow, you want to reduce temperature because you can end up with this like literal roughness or ashiness towards the back, towards the finish of your espresso. So I was pulling 90 Celsius here. I like 90 for some of these coffees because I am pulling in this kind of really faster area of like 10 to 15 seconds, and you do need some amount of temperature to, you know, extract these lighter roast coffees. But for example, on the decent, if I would pull this type of shot, I think my group head temperature is around 86, 88 Celsius. On this, you know, I've found 90 to work well with these burr sets. So there's some interlinkage between all of these different variables of like temperature, your flow. If we look at numbers here, I would say if your flow is above 4 mils a second, like exiting, that's when you probably should really reduce temperature. But you can actually keep most of these variables the same and just change temperature, and that might actually get you very, very close to what you're looking for. And I think mostly if you want to round things out, you want to make things sweeter, you want to reduce the temperature. But there is an amount of temperature you don't want to reduce too much, because then you don't have hot enough water to extract some of the acidity components, like, you know, the nuances and the acidity out of coffees like this. So that's just like the general like bigger picture things to keep in mind, of aside from, okay, yeah, just pour the water in and, you know, push hard first, then wait a second, then push really hard, right? Those are the other things that will help kind of improve the experience of these types of espressos. And mostly what we're trying to do is we're trying to clean up a lot of the things in the aftertaste and the finish. That's really where I detect a lot of problems with espressos, right? And generally speaking, I think most people are detecting things like, oh, it tastes harsh, or it tastes rough, or it tastes, you know, too weak or too strong, or whatever. And all of that happens kind of in the finish. But the main focus here is to shift everything with this style of shot, to shift everything to the front, so we experience everything there, and then clean up the back after we have this like long linger of acidity. And we clean up the back by, one, reducing pressures here at times, or reducing temperatures, or, you know, keeping check of flow. And kind of the variable you want to plug in here, or like the main factor to plug in here, is what grinder do you have, right? If you have a lower clarity burr set, you should probably maybe use lower flow here and maybe slightly hotter temperatures. If you have a really high extracting grinder like your 98 flats, maybe you want a lower temperature here, and then you can increase flow here. So there's a various different ways to play around with this, and that's what makes, you know, this manual espresso stuff very, very fun. Okay. Crema is Brian's favorite layer in Spro. True. So good. How would you do these on the Gen E? Because the max rate of pushing, it's limited, so you can't ramp that fast. Well, you could do the Gen E in manual mode, but so I think an example of this that a lot of people are like, remember, a lot of these espresso profiles are derived on the decent, which maxes out, you know, not that fast in terms of flow rate. I think it depends now. I don't know what the specs are nowadays, but, you know, it's like in your 8 to 12 mils per second world. If you have a machine that is limited based on flow here, this is where you will adjust grind. So like, because we have a manual machine here and we can drastically influence flow, and we kind of don't have to worry too much about is the puck going to look okay, because we have a very fast flowing basket here. We can kind of compensate by, you know, being actually a little bit on the finer side and pushing down harder, because the machine isn't limited based on flow here. I would say still adjust this based on grind, because even if you have a flat, you know, say you have like an espresso machine that has like a flat flow rate, like Gajra Classic, or, you know, those types of machines, right? You can pull a profile that is set to a grind size where the flow is constant and the puck will naturally degrade, and you'll see that pressure decline anyway, right? So that's like one way to do it, is just adjust grind. But you can change a lot of these variables based on what is the actual max flow rate of your machine. And faster is not necessarily always better, right? I think most machines you should still be able to accomplish somewhere around 3 to 4 mils exit flow rate or ramp up flow rate. I'm like very confident in that statement. I'm pretty sure. And if you're not reaching those flow rates, you probably need to adjust your grind size. Mortar and pestle is better than SG1. Dude, the SG1 is so great. You should need to adjust those MPs, right? Yeah, like, I think MP, again, I've mentioned this, MPs on espresso are okay, all right? This type of shot I just pulled would be really great on MPs. I would not brew coffee on NPs, though. Brew pour over on MPs. Have I ever tried pulling a Slayer style shot on the Flare 58? We're gonna do something. I think doing a Slayer style shot on this machine is kind of difficult, because it's a lot of work. You know, you have to. So Slayer shot is like, I believe, 1 mils a second, and then ramp up to, you know, the Slayer, like, I don't know why people like Slayer shots. This is a controversial statement. I think in today's landscape, I think Slayer shots are boomer shots. They're not good. They you know, if we're pulling coffees like this, I think a lot of Slayer shots are like too muddy. I think it works good for traditional coffees and like older coffees, but I think the pre-infusion time is like way too long, and the quote-unquote traditional Slayer shot, which is let's grind super, super fine, and we do this very low pressure, low flow, saturation, and then we ramp up. If you play around with a lot of this, right, like I would say that's a very sweetness forward, very muddied, very high body espresso. I think that works fine for a lot of milk drinks. I think there are various ways to accomplish those exact characteristics without spending 50 to 45, 50 seconds on a shot nowadays. But also on a flare, it's harder to do because we can only put so much water in here. So if we're at a very, very fine grind size, we don't just have like a pump that's putting water into here. And then, like, I don't know. I'm just like, for that type of shot nowadays, I think it is not that strong in the landscape in which I think most of you guys are pulling coffees. And if you wanted to just pull darker, blendier espresso, you can accomplish that in so many ways that, like, I just think the problem with this long pre-infusion stuff is like there's a lot of shit that can go wrong with extended pre-infusion today. I feel like anything over 10 seconds of pre-infusion is like, whoa, I don't know why we're doing that. I don't know if that's like just, I don't know. I'm just like, man, dark roast coffee, you could do like slow flow and it's gonna go good. And I find a lot of Slayer shots, like when I was doing a lot of Slayer shots, like before, we could pull a Slayer shot on the Mavam, but yeah, I don't know. Like for these coffees, I wouldn't do it. I just think they cover up too much stuff. Although this is actually very close to the second style of shot which we're going to pull, which is that more balanced style of shot. But we only pre-infuse for a little longer there, right? So it's still like exit flow rate that matters more for a lot of those like nuanced acidities or nuanced characteristics. But the initial like thing that you're going to be pushed into when you taste these is really, what I'm is like the pre-infusion time, right? The second style of shot that we're gonna pull is like, your more normal espresso, I would say. But obviously we have kind of other things we're looking for, which is like, larger flow rate, exit flow rates, and all of that. Yeah, I mean, it still really depends on what you're into. For example, at Say, they have the Mavam, which I don't even know if you guys can see. They are pulling long pre-infusion. They're grinding very, very fine. They're pulling long pre-infusion, and then they ramp up to about 5 bars. And then there's I don't know if there's a decline stage in that profile or not. I think this is really good if you are like making approachable espresso. Like if your goal is to make, good tasting espresso, more like all rounders, that you're trying to like kind of tame the acidity and turn that acidity or vibrancy into sweetness, this is really strong to do that, right? I just think like for these coffees, I don't really like them that much anymore because I think it covers up too much stuff, right? Like it's kind of funny that we're trying to take, like we've always been trying to do this with this generation of espresso tech, right? Like we're trying to like the espresso tech nowadays is like, let's try to make espresso not taste like espresso, right? Let's like evenly extract. Let's remove crema. Let's try to have very fast flow, right? And tame TDS, right? Lower the TDS, stretch out the ratios, and get all of those nuances. Kind of crazy that we're doing this. Why even make espresso in the first place? But with those long Slayer shots, long pre-infusion, I just find I find things to be a little too muddied. Like things are a little covered up. That is how I would make espresso for other people if I were to take these coffees. But I think I find anything, and of course this depends on what grinder you're using and waters and so on and so forth. I do find okay, if you're doing under 3 bars, like probably okay. But it's like, if you're doing like 30 seconds at 1 bar and then you ramp up, like, that's where I'm like, you're grinding way too fine. It's gonna be all mud. And I don't want any of that muddiness in the cup for these coffees. That is like just the thought process, right? And that's why I've tended to avoid those styles of shots these days. I just pulled a shot with your method waiting for it to... Yeah, see, dude, turbo blooms are great. We're going to do a different style of shot now. And go from there. But I've had 2 beans now that the X-Boom couldn't grind. Dang. You actually can slow feed this grinder if you like run it and then you throw the beans in. But I'd be curious to hear about what coffees you've had. I have had no problems with the grinder at all in terms of stalling or anything like that. And then let me see if we can knock the puck out for people to see. So this is the other thing. Okay, here, I'm going to try to do this with the puck screen. Show you guys. Might be very hard to see, but if you see here, there really aren't any like patches or like, there's no like weird, like if you ever cut open an espresso puck and you look at the bottom, right, you might see like different colored patches, right? You might see like darker spots, and then when you look at it, that's like basically an example of channeling or uneven extraction or something went wrong somewhere in your prep or all of that, right? But that's what I was saying is like when we have a basket like this, it kind of lets us save a lot of things here. But yeah, this is generally speaking. Nowadays, I'm going to try to break this without having this puck explode everywhere. If you look at this, my parents see, right, it's all the same color. Like there's no like dark spots in the middle. There's no channeling, right? So we're pulling evenly extracted espressos here, and a big part of that is one, how we introduce water, but also two, it's really the grind size we're at, right? So it's like, it's looking good. Is every grinder going to perform great at this grind size with this level of extraction? No, that's not the case. But for these types of coffees, that's what we're going for. I think, you evenly extract. We want to reduce, like, if we want to experience all of the subtleties in these premium coffees, right? And like the work that these producers are doing and the roasters are doing and all of that, right? Those are notes that are going to appear in something like a cupping bowl. Those are notes that are going to appear in something like a high clarity pour over. But in espresso, we're fighting so many different things, and having the baskets and the profiles and all of that just help us extract more evenly lets us actually experience some of those very small nuances. So that's like the kind of thing to think about a little. And that's why I've tended to nowadays not make as much espresso with these types of coffees, because I'm like, there's actually a fair bit of thought. Once you get into doing this, yes, this is very, very easy to do. But there's a fair bit of thought here, some amount of variables. Obviously, you have to get some pieces of equipment, but there are a lot of little small variables and things to think about when we are pulling coffees like this to kind of, honor the coffee, if that makes sense. So here we go. Let's pull a different shot now. Yeah, Charles, you should totally try that. I think MPs handle very well. It might just be that you like to have a more balanced espresso, right? Or you're used to maybe more balanced espresso. Essentially, think about this as acidity and sweetness. If you do low pre-infusion, low pressure, you really get this balanced shot. The Turbo Bloom is acidity up front at a sacrifice for some of the balance. It's gonna mimic the pressure profile, if that makes sense, in terms of how it tastes. So I think it's a different type of shot, right? And it's fun to experience. And there are levels to this, right? That is the thing with flair. Why we really like flair and all these is that we can stylistically really manipulate things. But I have my grind dialed in for most of these roast levels. The thing that I can manipulate now, and I know the shot will be evenly extracted because I have the basket, is the dynamics now, right? So it's these are shots of espresso and they're gonna taste great, but we're looking for a stylistically different presentation. And all we're gonna do now is we're going to pull. I don't know which coffee we're gonna pull. Maybe let's pull this Honduras. CLE Honduras. Man, this coffee's great. Oh, let me link these coffees in the chat for you guys. We're gonna pull a more balanced espresso. And we'll have a stylistically very different coffee. And in something like espresso, you can really, really change presentations a lot because you have that higher, more intense TDS. So even if you're using completely different coffees, you will still taste the medium of the brew method, right? Which is what I've been saying since the beginning. We're gonna be tasting, this is what espresso is, right? So yeah. So these were the coffees this is the coffee that I just pulled. So I just pulled this Kenyan Gesha. And then now I'm going to pull this very expensive coffee. Actually, this coffee's not that expensive for how good it is. Now I'm going to pull this Honduras coffee. Cup of Excellence, washed coffee. So also, to preface this, again, we're using very expensive coffee. So we're using coffees that have those nuanced characteristics that, we want to try to pull out. And, coffees, if you're pulling this type of shot, if you are using a lesser coffee, you know, if you're using like lower quality coffees, or maybe you're using like very funky processed coffees, you may not like the presentation of the shot we just pulled, or any of these shots, or any of these coffees on espresso, because you might, you know, extract too much out of them, or too much processing, or you know, if you're using a darker roast coffee, right? Like, again, don't use I mean, if you wanted a lot of pain, you should pull dark roast with this profile. You should pull 27% dark roast. So anyway, I like to do 17 grams, and now I don't even have the Eugenioides with me. I'll see if Bill wants to give me some. We were supposed to do a collaboration, and this man trolled me. We're gonna do a different collaboration though. The Eugenioides originally was supposed to be a collab coffee, and then he I got bait and switched. I mean, I think it was probably because I was traveling. He like forgot. So I was at 1.1, but that was on the older side. Let's go here. So the other thing too is real quick before we pull the next shot, I want to mention ratios again. So ratios. There are like two other, they're like, oh my God, I'm like now making this more complicated. Ratios with some of these, if you have a lower clarity burst set, like your 48 mil heptagonals, your niche zeros, I probably would not go above like 1 to 3.3, 3.5. If you have, of course, also we're using a flare, so it's like kind of, you know, we're limited to how much water we can put in. If you have higher clarity burst sets, I highly recommend you experiment into the 1 to 4 plus ranges. At least 1 to 3, like all of these, at least 1 to 3, because this will really let you experience a lot of those nuances of coffee. But also, if you are pulling coffees into that ratio, that really means your grind sizes are going to be, you know, a little bit on the coarser end. They're going to let these coffees really open up, let you extract a lot, and you know, this is what you want. Trust me, this is what you want. But also to you know, if you're on a flare, to reach those ratios in those times, at those flows, that does mean you know, you are pulling things more in line, right? Like you can kind of let the end full, like I do think for the coffees you're pulling, right? Like this was 17 to 72, 71. I think this would work well on a lot of those, you know, nicer grinders. But you might want to tame the ratios for some of these. Otherwise, you push the coffee a little too hard. This is, again, the thing with high extraction is if you push the ratios out a little too much, you're getting a bit of stuff at the end where the flow is slightly too high and maybe your grinder can't handle it. Although I would make the argument that you can dial that out. So keep that in mind. Anyway, we have 17 grams or 16.9. Here, I'll throw one more bean of this in. This is the Honduras. Yo, what's up? See, you can pull. You know, Flare 58 makes great coffee. See, my online advice is not the worst thing in the world. You can, and I'm glad that people are making espresso at the same time I'm making espresso. Okay, let's get this second shot ready, and I'm gonna pull with longer pre-infusion, but I'm basically at the same grind size. And what I'm gonna still do is, the difference here is I'm going to pre-infuse for a few seconds longer, but I'm going to still target the same kind of ramp up pressures and ramp up flow. This is much easier to see if you have a machine that has like a visualizer display, but in practice, you know, I still think with this type of experience with coffee, as much as we like numbers, as much as we like to track these things, if you are in anywhere in this realm, you can kind of just like let it go and you will end up with a good cup. And I wouldn't want the numbers to influence your flavors. Man, this coffee's Fucking incredible. Wow. Honduras Gesha. Wash Honduras Gesha. Man, crazy. Okay. Let me... Here. All right. So wash Honduras Gesha. Let me actually, we'll use this cup. So, yeah, like as much as we like to, what was I saying before? As much as we like to track data and look at numbers, espresso is weird and coffee is weird in the sense that you can kind of just do things that it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then it somehow tastes good. So I want people to taste everything. Taste all the shots that you pull. Don't like not want to drink the coffee because the number don't look good. So yeah, 17 grams again, and my espresso prep nowadays is like super simple. I just have this Espresso WDT, put it in here, and I'm operating at grind sizes where it's like, it'll be fine because we're on the coarser end. That the prep doesn't matter too much. Like you could just shake it up and throw it in, and it'll taste good. I actually do have the blind shaker somewhere here. Anyway, there we go. My portafilter is also, on the colder side. So, anyway. Let's try to do this. Very expensive espresso. You absolutely can pull these types of shots on a robot. The only challenge with the robot is, you are limited more on ratio on robot, and your basket shape is not as strong. Like there's no like S-Works for robot, right? Or maybe there is, and I haven't kept up with whatever Sheldon is making. So this type of shot is just like a more approachable version of the shot we made earlier. So we're going to just pre-infuse a little longer. But our grind sizes are the same, and our pressure, are like flow and all that are going to be the same. So the pure manipulation here is just pre-infusion time. And we're still targeting this like 1 to 2 bar pre-infusion world, right? So here, except for I didn't grind fine enough. So now I'm going to compensate, and I'm going to push up. Let me redo that. I wasn't grinding fine enough for this coffee. So that there is an example of, I started to pre-infuse at 2 bars. That shot time was also like, 10-ish seconds, or 10 to 15 seconds. And my grind size wasn't enough. On something like Flare, what I was doing was I noticed the grind size was not fine enough, and I just pushed it down harder to increase the flow to get into that 4 to 6 bar area. So I quote unquote saved the shot. But this will have a very different presentation to the initial shot, because the difference there was we didn't have this drop of pressure. So like this here, the first turbo bloom was we pushed down, we had a pressure increase and a pressure drop, and then a pressure increase. This here we were on the coarser end, so this is how you save a 2-course shot. Is we pushed the lever down, we had an increase of pressure, and then there really wasn't a drop because we were too coarse. And to compensate, I just pushed it down harder. So there's no like pure drop of pressure. It's like kind of a slight thing here. So in our flow, we have an introduction of flow, and then instead of the flow dropping as that pressure also drops, we just have a constant flow. So it's kind of like just a more constant flow here. And we end up with a shot that doesn't really have a lot of crema, but we kind of can save these types of shots and still make good tasting espresso. This probably is going to be very bright, but we'll taste it by just increasing flow. So that is just how things go. So let's taste this and we'll see, right? As you see here, this really doesn't look like espresso, right? It's there's like no crema here, and maybe the extraction will be good. I actually am pretty confident that at least with my setup here, with the 01, this is going to taste great, right? But you can kind of save things if that happens to you by just pushing the lever down harder or increasing flow on your machine. We just have more of this coffee, so we'll tighten up the grind, and we'll pull up another shot. Wow. Okay. This just tastes like, yeah, wow, actually this tastes really good. I can tell for this coffee I want more contact time, but stylistically, like, this is a good tasting shot. I think there's some more things that we could pull out of this coffee if we had a finer grind, which is what we'll do. But for a shot that where you would look at this and you'd be like, this on paper shouldn't be good because the numbers are all wacky. This is tasting pretty good. I'm gonna let this cool down, but it's very sweet, very very like sweetness forward. I wish there was more acidity. I know there's more acidity in this coffee, so we'll let it cool down. But this is more akin to something like really high extraction AeroPress. Like, this is what this kind of tastes like to me right now, which is when you effectively think about what an espresso setup is, it's, and the styles of shot we're pulling, we are getting into that territory of high extraction immersion brewing. So this, to me, I think that could have more dynamics. And that is what we wanted to kind of do, but our flow was a little too fast. Our grind was definitely too coarse. So we're getting like a sweet espresso that has acidity in it, but there's some like missing components to this coffee, which can, they'll appear on pour over, and we want to kind of try to get them in as espresso. But this is a good tasting shot. We saved it by increasing the flow there, but I know there's more in this coffee to pull out. So let's pull up another shot, and we'll kind of try to compare these styles of shots. So this is too coarse. We compensated. We just increased flow to try to save things. So you get kind of like a Sprover. Like, this really, I forgot. This is basically a Sprover, a low ratio Sprover. But we want to have like, more ramping, a better looking curve, if that makes sense. So let's try pulling that shot again. But as you see here, again, because we're operating on the coarser ends of things and we have the high extraction basket, we end up with a very even espresso puck. Like, if you look at this, look at that. It's very coarse. So all the water flows through this very nicely. No black spots, no weird looking things there. If I break this puck apart, right, you can see that the colors in here are all very even. So we know the water is flowing through this correctly. It's just that we were definitely too coarse. We're getting something like Sprover, and Sprover for Flare 58. This is the type of stuff where you unfortunately you can only fit so much water in a flare. If this happens to you on a pump machine, I would just let that run. Like, keep letting it run until you get somewhere around your 1:8 to a 1:10 ratio, right? This here was still in that 1:4 ratio. It tastes fine, but we're limited to the amount of water we can fit through here. So if this happens to you on a pump machine, just let it keep running. Although, it does taste good. It just tastes like, immersion brew, right? So you should still taste these things, right? But we're trying to get more in line of what espresso should taste like. Ban espresso. But as you see there, right, nowadays it's like visuals, none of this stuff matters anymore, right? Like we shouldn't care about visuals with any of these. And in fact, all of your most ugly looking espressos are probably going to taste the best. So we had that, the Turbo Loom Kenyan Gesture at the beginning, which was super acidity forward. We had this shot that was a little on the coarser end that we were able to save, more akin to Sprover, which is, this is a mess up here where I was too coarse. I was able to save the shot, make it taste pretty good. If you're on a pump machine, let it keep running. This, very balanced, very, very sweet. Tastes like, basically high extraction AeroPress, but stronger TDS. Now we want to try to pull, I would say, still an acidity skewing shot, but more balanced with more sweetness. So this was the shot of espresso I was pulling on a different stream. But for this, but for these coffees, right, like, the first style of shot, which is like your Turbo Bloom, all of that, you get the nuances of acidity. So in this specific coffee, right, I think there's like this lemongrass effect, there's like an apple note, and it's really, there's like a structure of acidity to it. On the Turbo Bloom, this coffee is going to be very lemongrass forward, and there's going to be so many layers of acidity. But we're sacrificing, we're sacrificing like sweetness and balance to take all these acidity notes and kind of compact them to the front. And that's like the stuff that's in these more, these high scoring coffees, these expensive coffees, these like layers and nuances. We're able to get that, but we sacrifice some of the balance and some of the sweetness. It will finish clean, but the most thing that you'll experience is acidity. This might actually be, not approachable for a lot of people. But this style of shot we're trying to do is manipulate some of that, right? Like maybe let's tame the acidity a little more. Don't make it as crazy and bring some of that sweetness back in. So a different style shot, which I think, still most people like. And the biggest manipulation is going to be pre-infusion time. But we still want to bring in some of that acidity, which is why we target faster flow rates as we ramp up. Getting caffeinated. Let me taste this Honduras again. Let me give it a swirl. So even for like a messed up shot, right, or a shot that's too coarse, it's really nice. Like this to me, if I look at it, I didn't know this was an espresso shot. I'd be like, wow, this tastes pretty good. Really lingering sweetness. But I know what this coffee should taste like. I know there's more acidity to pull out of there, but I really like a lot of the sweetness, and it's clean. It's very floral. Oh, very floral. Lingering on my palate. There's like so much sweetness lingering on my palate, but I want more acidity, right? So this is kind of like the too far out in one direction of too coarse. What we're trying to do is somewhere like in between these two shots here. So somewhere in between your Turbo Bloom and in between your like zero pressure Sprover type of shot, where you get, some amount of acidity. It is more Turbo Bloom acidity skewing, but with a lot of those sweetness, right? This is too sweetness forward to me, or too muddy, or, it's not muddy, but like, I know there's acidity that's in this coffee that I want to pull out. So I guess this is good that we pulled a shot that isn't perfect. Although all of this is very subjective, right? And if you have coffees that are louder, they may appear, they may kind of skew things in certain directions, depending on, if you have a low clarity coffee and then also, again, we get back to the whole conversation of grinders and burst sets and all that. But I'm going to probably cut this out into a VOD somewhere for you guys to watch. So I was at 1.1, 1.2 on the O1. I'm going to go 2, 3. Let's go somewhere on the, like, for sure, very fine end. So let's go to 0.8. Let's try 0.8 out. So let's see where this lands. Another thing to mention is also dosages. You know, you can impact a lot of this experience with a different dose. Let me get another cup. Ooh, this is a cup that the stream hasn't seen in a long time. Oh my god, my favorite cup ever. MK Studios, baby. Okay, this is on the finer end. So we went like way finer. Let's see what happens. Try to get our shot that's in between, where a lot of the manipulation is through the actual profiling. It's dropping things. So this is, I think, might be a little too fine, but we'll find out. I think it's okay to be on the finer end because you can like, that's the thing with the flare. I was like super coarse. It tastes okay. If it's too fine, I can still fix it because of the magic of profiling. So yeah, let me just wipe this off. It's a little wet. Oh no, my thing isn't perfect. So, here we go. Throw this guy back in. I believe I have enough water for this. There we go. Oh, spaghetti moment there. I didn't have the portafilter locked in. Oh, let's see if this still tastes okay. I poured the water and it went through the side. That's hilarious. If this happens to you, don't worry because there is no pressure through the puck at that point. And on the flare, water will sit on your puck. We've ruined everything. Top 10 moments. Okay. See, no water goes into the puck because it's low pressure. And also, if you guys did not know, on a flare, you pour the water sits against the puck. And it doesn't do anything until you actually introduce pressure. This was like a thing that we had like discussions of this with Shay a very long time ago. It was like, if you have water just sitting on your puck, does this do anything for espresso? This is a 18 to 20 gram basket. So this is the 58 millimeter Wafo Spirit basket. So I use Spirit for everything, by the way. It is just a great basket. It's like, what basket size is Brian use? Yeah, 18 to 20 grams. If you have 14 to 16 gram baskets, for sure you could fit more water through them, sort of. You only have so much lever distance. That's why with a lot of espresso nowadays, like the step down baskets are super cool. Low dose espresso is really cool when you think about it. Like I would love to be able to pull like, you know, your 10 to 12 gram shots. Like if I could pull 10 to 60s, I'd be so happy. Okay, kettle is heated up. We're actually pouring water into the flare, not onto the scale. And let's give this pull this and give this a taste. Here we go. So again, I'm targeting somewhere in between these two shots. So my 2 bars, I'm pre-infusing slow. I see the first few drops, and then I ramp up all the way to 5-6 bars. I still have coffee here. I'm ramping down. My Akaya is running out of battery. Ramp down, pressure slow, and then we end up here, natural pressure decline at 62. And my shot time was actually like 22-ish seconds, 23, 22 seconds. So I should have used a clear cup so you could see, but there is some amount of crema. Oh, very scary. But the shot was slow at the beginning, fast towards the back there. So the thing is this shot should be like literally in between these two, where we were way too coarse here. We were able to kind of save it. On a flare, a little harder to do that. This one, we were going super fast, 1 second turbo bloom. You know, you yeet the thing. And then this is somewhere in between the two. And this is what I think is still, you know, if I were to say like we can imagine this would be like your traditional 9-bar espresso, which is like not good. Don't do that. You're killing the coffee. Then we have your 6-bar turbos. Then you have this 4 to 6-bar turbo bloom. Then you have somewhere, I'm messing this up. Let me do that again. 9-bar espresso. Do not do that. You are killing the coffee. You should throw away your espresso machine if you pull those types of shots with these coffees. Then you have your slower pre-infusion up to 6-bar shot. Then you have something like this, which is like a sort of faster flow at the end than something like, I would say, a normal turbo. But because it has longer pre-infusion, but we have other stuff that lets us pull very fast at the end and evenly extract. Then you have turbo bloom. Then you have this like way too coarse, aka just make AeroPress type of Sprover brew. So that is like those are like kind of stylistically the shots that you can pull, right? Like or the larger categories of shots that you can pull. The reason why I think a lot of people will enjoy the shot is that because for coffees like this, there are a lot of those nuanced notes, right? And you want to get those nuanced notes, but maybe you don't want things to be like too acidity forward. You still want to have an enjoyable espresso. And you like those more muddier characteristics or, you know, of like low and slow pre-infusion shots, but we are combining some of that faster flow that we get with this. So you kind of get the, you know, in between both. Depends on what you like. I still prefer turbo bloom style shot, but we'll give this a taste. And we will see. There was a lemongrass note that I was missing from this coffee because, you know, we only have so much water we can fit in the flare for the super coarse style of shot. So there we go. There's that structure that I was missing with this. it has the strength that this shot has, but it is not as acidity forward. So that's the thing, is like it's more balanced, more sweet. It's still skewing, but you get a lot. It's still skewing towards acidity, but it has a lot of sweetness in there, right? And that's because we pre-infused at the beginning at 2-ish bars for a few seconds longer. So the longer you pre-infuse, generally speaking, will introduce more of that, like, you know, balance. Some people could perceive that as muddiness, but it boosts up a lot of that perceivable sweetness at a sacrifice of acidity. But because we are still pulling very fast at the end, and we are still, you know, pulling very to larger ratios and lower pressures, we are able to accomplish, you know, extract enough of the acidity that is in this coffee, and we can get the layered nuances, right? In this coffee, I think it's like lemongrass. There's an apple note. It's clean. It's crisp. It's floral. The Turbo Bloom that we pulled, that, you know, Turbo Bloom would just be like lemongrass forward, acidity forward, sacrifice the sweetness, sacrifice maybe some of that florality at the end. This here is, you know, if I were to just guess numbers, right? If your Turbo Bloom is like your 9 or 10 out of 10 in terms of acidity presentation, this is maybe like a 7 to 8. So you get enough detail. But the thing that lingers is that there is now this transition period between your acidity to the sweetness. Like, you can tell that things are tied together very much like how if you brewed this coffee, and this is a high scoring coffee, you know, how is there harmony and how are things tied together in the cup? It depends stylistically on what you're going for, though, right? If I were to taste this, right? Yes, I think it's an acidity forward coffee and an acidity forward espresso shot. And it's sweet, it's clean, it's floral. I still wish there was like, you know, more acidity. And that's where I think the Turbo Bloom profile is still stronger in that regard. Personally, that's what that's like what I prefer. You know, depends on what you're going for. I would say that for most people, they probably prefer the shot I just pulled, because if you aren't used to you need to get used to tasting this like style of shot. And again, these styles of shots, I would say for sure the Turbo Bloom does not work well with majority of, you know, lower end grinders. Like if you're using like a lower end grinder, I would say focus more on slower flow rates. If you're using your 98 flats, some of the 64 mil flats, of course, please experiment. You may not get a really good type of shot. And some of this is again down to your gear. So like you can compensate in certain areas with grind size and flow rates and temperature, but ultimately speaking, like some of these shots are not very strong, especially because of the contact time. Like, you know, 15-second espresso shot, right? How many grinders and burst sets work with a 15-second long espresso shot, right? Like not many. But it's really interesting if you can nail it down, right? If you've never tasted espresso like this, like, whoa, that is really, really good. It's super vibrant. It's super acidity forward. There's so much detail in the acidity. Of course, sacrificing some of the sweetness. This style shot, you know, you can do it on most grinders. Is it going to taste good on a niche zero? I don't think so. Is it going to taste good on 98 flat? Of course. But you're getting this wider sweet spot, right? Like literally sweeter espresso. But if you can pull this type of shot, and please experiment, right? Like maybe you want to do a shot that's like in between these two. And what you adjust is just still that pre-infusion time. Like still focus on that 3 to 3+ mil exit flow rate, but focus on the pre-infusion time, right? Play around with how hard you pull the lever down, or how light you pull the lever down, or if you're, you know, on an E61 or something like that, right? It's still your pre-infusion time, and I think that's like going to drastically impact the dynamics in the cup. Right? Like all of these, like let's be real, all of these coffees, if you are in the realm of what I'm doing, they're gonna taste great, especially if you're using coffees of this caliber. However, it depends on personal preference and stylistically what you're going after. So so here we go. Yep, see, it's still, you know, Beautiful, even, nice color. No weird discoloration in the puck. This thing's hot, so I'm trying to not like hurt myself holding this. Right? We're still at the grind sizes and we're still at the style of shot where our flow is super, really why this looks this way is because of how we're able to maintain that flow or increasing flow as we are ramping up, right? So we're ramping up and we're keeping the shot into the 4 to 6 bar range, right? AKA we, if you have a Flare 58, if you look at this gauge, none of our shots ever, look at this. None of our shots are ever in this range, right? This is bad. That's bad. Don't do this. You see that? It says espresso. That's bad. Don't do that. That means your pressures are too high and you're throwing your money away, right? You want to be lower than that. That's how you make good coffee. But yeah, like that's the thing, right? Is it's like with these types of coffees, like there are so many techniques now to pull espresso, and I still think if you want the intensity, right? We're pulling these coffees still to a larger ratio, but all of these are going to have higher TDS than, even your high extraction AeroPress, even your high extraction pour overs and all of that. There's a level of intensity that is really interesting with espresso. The challenge is taming the TDS, right? It's taming the TDS, and that's why we like to go to the larger ratios so we can get the extension of flavor notes and the extension of acidity and the depth that is inherently in these very premium coffees, right? And that is where you just need to really keep in mind of the style of shot you're pulling, right? Is that like, do you really want to be pulling a muddy shot of espresso with your $20 shot coffee, right? And while there is a larger sweet spot with most of these coffees, generally speaking, right, it's harder to mess up and pull a bad shot. You still want to make your money's worth, right? Like make it worth it that you got a coffee like that. And that's still why I tend to not recommend people brew these coffees as espresso, because there's a lot that can go wrong in the espresso world, right? But if you can kind of nail things down, then I think you're gonna get a stellar tasting espresso, right? You're getting like these espressos to me, even though you guys know I dislike espresso, I'm like, this is really good. Like this, I would pay for this espresso shot that I'm tasting right now. Of course, I think the coffee is really carrying the story, but like this to me is I'm not tasting as much espresso, right? Like what does espresso taste like? Like I'm not, this is my challenge with espresso nowadays is like people have, especially shops, right? You go to a shop, like people have this vision of what espresso should taste like. I am not interested in today's world to taste what espresso tastes like. I'm interested in tasting what the coffee tastes like. And that is the challenge with, espresso in general, is that I really think for these types of coffees, there's so much work that goes into them. You don't want to be tasting what espresso tastes like, right? You don't want to be tasting, this is what high TDS tastes like, this is what pressure tastes like, this is what crema tastes like, right? You want to be tasting those inherent notes that happened from a producer level to the roaster level, to like, this is what the coffee, inherently has. And those are the things that this is why I've been saying ever since the beginning of the stream and video, I guess, is you're fighting against the medium in itself, right? But if you can get it right, you end up with these coffees, higher TDS, like intense presentations of those nuances. And I think that is what's really interesting to kind of look for if you do want to go down this terrible path of pulling espresso. So yeah, that's like the long ramble on pulling these coffees. And like, the styles of shots that I would do, the kind of approach and methodology and whatever you want to call it. Espresso is fun, okay? But yeah, I'm letting my friend borrow this flare for a bit of time. Or, just I don't know if we'll ever see this thing on stream ever again. Maybe we'll see the Mavam on stream more. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to go over. So, yeah, let me now catch up on chat, but I think we'll make this into a YouTube video. So see you guys later. So okay, let me look at chat now. Is that the commercial version or home? This is just the normal fish. It's the 900 ml or 1 liter version of the fish. Great kettle. Let me get some water. I'll be back in a second, guys, and we will look at the chat more, and we'll kind of sip on these espressos, and maybe I'll actually clean up. I have to record some X-Bloom videos later today. All right. Let's catch up on chat, make sure my computer isn't dying, but it is really cold today, so that's why the camera has not died at all. I haven't even turned the fan on the camera, but I'm thinking about I have this other camera. I think I might give that to Jose Hijon. Jose, by the way, guys, in a few weeks, Jose's coming over. He's gonna stay with me. We're doing a Bay Area event, and we can get Jose to hang out on the stream with us. So I think that's content, guys. That's the content right there. So be excited for that. Probably in a few weeks. Pepe will also be in town, but Pepe is gonna stay at a different hotel. I only have space for one guy, so I am flying Jose in, and he's gonna stay with me, and we're gonna, I don't know, we're just gonna like hang out, and I guess we can stream stuff. I don't know. I think next year we'll do some streams in Ecuador. We'll try to. I got him the Starlink setup, so we can stream in Ecuador now, at least at Finca Soledad. But I don't think we're going to Soledad. We're gonna go to San Pedro, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, that's some cool stuff that's gonna be happening sometime next year. Also, actually, I won't spoil things. We'll talk about that later. There's a lot of exciting stuff that I think will be interesting for you guys next year. Okay, let me catch up on the chat. I actually feel 7.5 gram singles. I think that is awesome. I think if you look at Sheldon's step down baskets, you know, like your 10 to 14 gram shots in a 58 millimeter setup is great, right? The thing that I struggle with is like, yes, I understand having the smaller baskets for things like La Pavone or Cremina, Nomad. But sometimes you want the workflow of the larger machines. My 9 barista just went out the window. Guess we're only making filter from now on. I have the 9 barista here. Shout outs to Doug, who is in this other video that we did of the column. He's based in New York. He gave me the 9 barista. I need to use it at some point. I haven't. It's sitting here. It's a beautiful machine. It's kind of goofy. I don't know why I would use that when I can use this. Anyway. I missed the beginning of the stream. Can someone remind me the turbo bloom of what the turbo bloom is, starting point, goals, numbers for the dieting and process? So the turbo bloom is when you are introducing water into the puck, there's like quote unquote a bloom phase, if you think about it, right? Like, you know, you think about pour over, when you introduce water in, water is saturating the better grounds, or in this case, the puck. A turbo bloom is slamming or introducing water pretty quickly into the puck, you probably won't really disturb a lot of stuff because of the grind sizes you're expected to go, which we'll talk a little bit about. And then you ramp up. So basically, it is a 1 second, 1 to 2. I like 1 second pre-infusion. So on the lever, it's like this, or on most of these machines, it's like push in, pressure goes up, and then you ramp up. So it's 1 second of pre-infusion, then you ramp up. And what you can do while you're ramping up is you can kind of control your flow and pressure. I like to be under 6 bars. I like to be, in that 4 to 5. 6 is fine, I guess. And you'll see your flow rate go up. The thing that you just want to be careful with Turbo Bloom is you want to be careful of not letting your flow escape too much. I think that's kind of self-explanatory if you taste the shots, is that if you end up with a espresso shot, a Turbo Bloom, or any of these shots with a flow that is too high, it is going to be hard to have the contact time. You're like 2 course basically. So that was what this shot was here. We're really making like immersion brew at that point. Turbo Bloom shots generally are more suited towards higher extracting grinders, coffees that really can benefit from those very even, very more cleaner styles of shots where we're not really tasting pressure. And it works a lot stronger with things like your 98 flats, your really well aligned higher clarity grinders, right? These types of things. Today I did a Turbo Bloom, and it was the first time I enjoyed my apricot co. What the fuck, apricot co-ferment? Wow. Yeah, that's some stuff that is like with these types of shots. I think a Turbo, okay, it depends on the level of co-ferment. Like, I wouldn't do this with like a lot of co-ferments, because I feel like once those shots cooled, you would really taste this like weird separation between the processing and the coffee that was used to do the processing, the coffee that was processed. And I think that type of separation is crazy. But also Turbo Bloom, when it's like warmer for co-ferments, you're gonna get like crazy fruit presentation. So yeah, the more like turbo forward balanced shot of espresso, great. I had like a pucker on my face. Kenyan Gesha, when it really cooled, Turbo Bloom, super acidity forward, vibrancy forward. The slower style of the shot, where it was still faster flow focus, but more seconds of pre-infusion, longer pre-infusion. Stylistically, shot is very well enveloped in sweetness, but very acidity forward. It is more balanced, it's like acidity forward here. So I would say Turbo Bloom is like here in terms of acidity. And you sacrifice a lot of the sweetness. This here is you get higher sweetness and you get a little more acidity. Like, that is what we're going for. 7 out of 10 on acidity versus 10 out of 10 on acidity, where like I would say it's more like 10 out of 10 on acidity, 3 or 4 in terms of sweetness, versus like an 8 or 7 or 8 out of 10 for acidity, with maybe like a 4 to 6 in terms of sweetness. So there's a slight modulation where we lower the acidity in to bring back sweetness. And then if you're way too coarse, this would be much better if it was a much larger beverage, if we were able to extract more. There is acidity in there, it's sweet, but there's no clear layering or structure that we're getting out of these two shots. And that's because this is the first, I would run this a lot longer if this was Sprover, but we definitely were too coarse for something like a flare. We're able to make it taste good, but we lose out a lot of those details in terms of what makes these coffees, quite special. So, this is how I've been pulling espresso, right? Like, these are the two styles of shots that I feel like I've talked about these types of shots for years and years, but I never did it on a stream. So I wanted to do it on the stream with the flare for you guys. But these are the types of shots that I pull for most coffees, because if a coffee doesn't taste good on the Turbo Bloom, it's probably going to taste good on this style of shot. Or, you pull a shot on this and you say you want to experience more acidity, you do the first style shot that I pulled on the stream today. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. And then this third style shot, I don't really make as much anymore. I much prefer to just make, my goal is to make a large quantity of drink with these coffees, especially of this caliber. I would just much rather do a pour over or a high extraction immersion brew than run the risk of reaching too high pressures or getting any sort of crema in the cup. So yeah, those are the little nuances there. I'm doing 17. So you have a P64 with MPs. I would do 17 to 60 in under 20 seconds. 15 to 20 seconds. Is that right? Yeah, so that's what I was pulling. That's what I pulled this shot to, 17 to 60. The first shot that I pulled, Turbo Bloom, I pulled a little longer, 17 to 71-ish. But also I'm using 01 Measons. So also keep in mind, depending on what burrs you're using, you can amplify certain characteristics. So for example, if I was using my Capitec setup, I get the double effect of very acidity forward burst set with very acidity forward espresso. So super double up. And then you imagine you use a coffee that is acidity forward. And it's like triple acidity forward. But I also think this is a great experience to do if you have, say, a more balanced burst set, like Option 01 Measons, or the Lab Suites, or those types of burrs, because then you can drastically see the direction of how an espresso shot influences, I would say, a more transparent presentation. Like, aka the burrs don't have a stylistic, a big stylistic impact on your coffee. Then what you're really gonna taste is the stylistic impact or dynamic shift through the espresso. So I think that's like the cool thing there with espresso profiles. Yeah, I would try like 17 and then like, I don't know what the offset temperature is. I have a regular Flare 58. I haven't kept up. I'm using 3 dots on here, and my kettle temperature for this was 90 Celsius. If you have a traditional boiler machine, probably 92, 91, 92 Celsius. Because by the time it hits your puck, it's going to be lower. I think the way to do this is you actually start with lower temperatures. Your 86 to 90 Celsius, depending on what machine you're using, and then up temperature from there. If you're missing out, say you have a cup that is like way too sweetness forward, and you don't have any of those dynamics and acidity, that means you need it up to temperature. If you have a lot of muddiness or ashiness, I would really say it's more of a nature of ashiness. As you increase flow when you're pulling the shot, that means your temperature is a little too high, and you'll really taste that in the finish. And if you have too low temperature, I think you'll taste that more up front because of the acidity. There really won't be a lot of acidity. And if you have temperature too high, it's gonna be the ashiness or the weird like iffiness on your palate that's gonna be there at the back if your flow, where you have too hot temperature and too high flow. The water I'm using is my tap water, which is 15 TDS, very soft. Super soft water. I do not know the exact breakdown of my water currently because it seems to change. But you generally want to do these coffees with lower TDS. I think if you add I think you can balance these types of shots if you add like a little magnesium. Otherwise, you get if it's like too soft, you might run into a little bit of metallicness. However, I for sure, if you look at these styles of shots, I think pour over water, whatever water you're using for your filter coffee, is probably a little stronger. Like, you don't want to use your 100 50 ppm waters, because we really are trying to pull coffees that are more like pour over. I'm giving up on Breville Turbo. Dude, I'm telling you, Howie, you gotta get one of these boys. You gotta get one of the flares. You gotta get in on the good stuff. $120 is fine. I mean, like, guys, try. You guys are smart enough. I've mentioned this many times before. You guys just need to try shit out, okay? Try it and adjust the taste, okay? If you, like, what you could do is you always get distilled water, and if your water's too hard, you could, like, pour that shit in there, and it'll be fine. For third wave water, so the thing to keep in mind with third wave water is, I think they did a rebrand, so, like, light. You need to make an entire thing of third wave water. Think of it as your concentrate, and then you have another distilled water, and then you mix the two. So you use one of the third wave waters for dilution, and don't only dump in like a third of the packet. Like, dump the entire packet in, mix it up, and I like to dilute anywhere from 1 to 3 for filter brewing, up to 1 to 5. Of course, depending on coffee and brew method. But generally, your 25 to your 50 ppm stuff is probably going to be okay. Again, we're pulling espressos, so a lot of the muddiness that you experience may just be because it's espresso, not because of your water. Although, if you want to make things, even sweeter and even more tame and all of that, without getting into like ashiness territory, then that's when you can use the third wave espresso. What we're doing, the style of shot still will exist regardless of what water profile you use. Just what you want to tame is going to be like the back, the acidity, the that's where it's like you may miss out on certain things if your water is too soft. If it's too soft, you might get like too much metallicness or too much saltiness, like weird shit in the back. If it's too hard, you might not taste anything. So yeah, there's a balance to this. That is true. You guys do need help. Coffee is stupid. The fact that any of this changes how things taste is like really dumb. Coffee is dumb. I pour too fast, it don't taste good. I pour too slow, it don't taste good. Oh my god, I can't help. Can't win. We can't win. So anyway, I hope this gives people some amount of baseline in terms of this is how you make. If you have expensive coffees, you want to do espresso profiles, and you want to pull espresso in a way that I think highlights the nuances in the coffee. If I pull these at 9 bars, throwing money away. So I think I hope this is helpful. It's always fun to do the live streams. I don't know when the next time I'll stream is, but I'm trying to do more streams, although I'm traveling again, so it's complicated. But we're gonna do, I think, actually the next stream we're gonna do, most likely the next stream we're gonna do, unless I decide to stream on this road trip that I'm going on, is I am going to stream Esmeralda roasting. We'll sample roast and cup in Esmeralda. And I think that will be exciting. So there's the 92 Esmeralda coming out from Bean & Bean, and we tried to do that the other day on the other live stream. We tried to sample roast it, and then the Ikawa blew up, and it was a tragic moment. Sproluginoides. You can just go and buy stevia and pour it into some water and shake it up, and you effectively have eugenoides. It literally tastes like stevia. It is like insane to me that coffee can taste like that. It's overwhelming too. It's like funky stevia. It's heavy. It's syrupy. It's crazy. But I've only tried it once, so. But it's such a distinctive memory. It's like the first time you taste blueberries, or the first time you taste you have like, you know, like for me it's this like, I had a second blueberry bomb moment when I tasted Finca Sofia again. Like, oh my god, blueberry moment, right? And I had that moment again when I was tasting the Proud Mary coffee, the $100 cup of coffee, and it's like, oh my god, that's the shit. That's insane. So that's like, you know, there are only so many of those moments that exist in coffee nowadays. The Esmeralda roasting will happen. Or I'm hoping that they figure out the problems with the Ikawa. Basically, there was, like, what happened was we had the Ikawa up, and there's like a profile, that a sample roasting profile that they use for Best of Panama. So like Best of Panama is like really well run apparently. I've never been, but like everybody, I think it's like super organized. So everybody like roasts the coffees the same way. There's like an approved profile, it seems, that everybody uses to roast the coffees for sample roasting. And we were trying to use that, but then what happened was, I think the iPad or the phone, there was like a weird firmware update. Like basically, this is the problem with Bluetooth, or like I don't know if it's Bluetooth, but like it just blew up. Like I think it was like trying to execute the profile and also firmware update at the same time, and it didn't know what to do, and basically it blew up. So then we ended up cupping we ended up doing the cupping stream instead. So that was like still really fun to do, and we recorded a video on that cupping that I'm going to publish at some point. How to pull milk-based drinks with not high end 90 plus. Probably wouldn't do that. $25 latte right there with these, right? You know, I think, controversial take, but I do feel like some of these coffees would taste really good in iced lattes. Maybe, dude, I have this. Oh my god, should I just do it? Should I just like pour these in milk? I don't know. I'm pretty really caffeinated right now. I have some oat milk. I have the Honduras COE espresso. We can pour. We'll just pour milk into it. I have this milk. So I don't have any like barista milk. I use high-end coffee as a tonic. I think that these would taste really good. Okay, here, Kenyan Gesha. Like, you guys know, with these, I can't consume all these coffees, so a lot of times I just end up dumping them, unfortunately. Especially when I'm by myself. I don't have my guys here to help consume everything. So, Kenyan Gesha latte. I'll just like sip and spit. Kenyan Gesha iced latte. With like not the best oat milk. For sure, do not make Turbo Bloom milk drinks. Woo. Very acidity forward. Honestly, it tastes fine. It like tastes pretty good, but the acidity is so clear. The espresso is so clear that it cuts through things. Will June kill me if I take her COE coffee and I pour milk into it? Let's find out. This is your COE Honduras wash Gesha latte, iced latte, please. $25. This is also, like, I do think we need a thicker milk for some of these. Honestly, tastes pretty good. When you have a more balanced espresso, it's like there is a distinct separation between, like, I'm tasting the espresso. I'm actually tasting like a lot of the nuances in this espresso, but then I get the nice milk finish. Yeah, we're doing the barista milk instead. I mean, not barista milk, oat milk, just like regular ass oat milk. So now we know, guys. Make your It's like milk and acid together. It's not bad. It actually isn't bad. I think the Turboloom was like really bad. It was like way too acidity forward, but because we did a longer pre-infusion, right? See, if you have really a well-pulled espresso shot, it will work well as a base for anything. Anything. Okay. Yeah, yikes. Don't do that shit, guys. But, yeah, you know, that's why you pull 9-bar boomer shots of COE and you make a perfect espresso that doesn't have any acidity. And then you add milk into it. Yeah, would not do that. Yeah, $25 Sour Patch Latte. True. You know, it's okay. Jokes aside, yeah, really. I think if you do freeze distill this milk, it will taste good in stuff like this. Should you do it? I don't know. I don't know, at least for espresso. So, yeah. Anyway, we have been on for a bit of time. I am going to go. I need to go get lunch, guys. So I am going to hop off now. Very productive stream. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned why you should never make espresso. So, yeah, all right. I'll see you guys later. There's some more videos coming out probably this week if I can get around to them. There's a 4X Gesha cupping stream that I think is really interesting. There's like this 4X Gesha video coming. There's a video about blends with Trav from Mod Cup coming out, and maybe some other goofy things coming out. But yeah, and then you know, on the Xfilm YouTube channel, we're going to be doing some tasting of some holiday coffees, which I probably will record later today. But yeah, all right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you later. Goodbye.